The notification sound echoed through my empty apartment, cutting across my thoughts like a cold blade. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was Mom again. And just as I expected, the message read, "Olivia, things are so hard this month. Your dad's contract is delayed again. Could you send a little more just temporarily? Love you so much." I sighed, my hand trembling as I set down the lukewarm coffee. I was 27, working at a finance company in Dallas, and for the last 8 years I had become the family's default ATM. Every emergency, from medical bills, roof repairs to surprise taxes, always landed on me. Some months, Mom cried over the phone saying the bank had warned they'd foreclose if payments weren't made. Other times, Dad texted long messages about the air conditioner breaking down, repairs costing over $4,000. Then came the smaller requests: extra classes for your sister, fixing the car to get to work, even a deposit for an important party. All of it piled on my shoulders. On the surface, those problems sounded reasonable, but what weighed on me was this: they never once asked if I was okay, if I had anything left over, or if I was exhausted. They only needed money, and I was the one expected to provide it. Every time I opened my banking app, I carefully calculated how much I had left to avoid overdrafting. Some months I sent $1,000, other times more than $1,500. Money that could have gone toward a decent car instead of the beat-up one I drove, or maybe a short vacation to breathe again. But no, I ate cheap instant noodles all week while my savings bled dry. I never told anyone at work. To colleagues, I was just Olivia. Diligent, always staying late, rarely joining after-work drinks. Once, Hannah from accounting stopped by my desk, handing me a steaming latte and asked softly, "Olivia, when was the last time you did something fun just for yourself?" I forced a smile. "Probably back in college. Fun is a luxury I can't afford anymore." Hannah frowned. "But you work so hard. Don't you deserve a little something for yourself?" I didn't answer because at that very moment my phone buzzed. Another withdrawal of $1,200 for this month's emergency. The red numbers glared back at me and my chest tightened. The bitterest part was the daily contrast. I lived in a tiny apartment furnished with secondhand stuff, while my younger sister, Sophia, filled her Instagram with wine bars, art exhibits, and weekend getaways with her boyfriend. Scrolling through those pictures, I felt a knot in my chest, anger tangled with grief. In my family, my sacrifices never truly mattered. Mom always sent sweet texts, "Thank you, my good girl." But right after came another urgent request. Dad repeated, "Family must take care of each other." But to me, that care had become a chain that left me gasping for air. Many nights, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering where my youth had gone. 8 years with no real vacations, no savings to start over. Everything swallowed by the endless pit labeled family responsibility. I used to comfort myself, one day they'll recognize my effort, one day they'll appreciate me. But that day never came. Only more messages, more demands, more months where I lived like a shadow. When Hannah once put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Olivia, you can't keep carrying everything forever. Your family is lucky to have you, but what about you?" I smiled, but inside felt hollow. Lucky? If this is luck, then my life must be the cruelest joke. I glanced at my phone, the words flashing, "Transfer successful, $1,200. My chest tightened. How many dreams, how many years had I already given up just to buy their version of help? And I had no idea that very transfer would mark the beginning of the biggest upheaval of my life, the one that would change everything forever. I pulled aside the old curtain in my third-floor apartment, staring down at the crowded parking lot. Shiny SUVs and bright sports cars gleamed under the lights. My own 12-year-old sedan sat there, and every time I turned the key, I prayed it wouldn't stall in the middle of the road. The apartment was so small I could reach the kitchen, dining table, and bed in just a few steps. The wallpaper was faded, the couch sagged from years of use after I bought it secondhand online for $50. I was used to it because for 8 years I had put everyone else's needs before my own. The irony? Each time I opened my phone I saw the opposite. Sophia, only 23, living like a little celebrity. Her Instagram brimmed with cocktails on rooftop bars, pricey new dresses, art shows with Danny, even ski trips in Colorado and weekends on California beaches. One time I saw her post a photo standing next to a massive oil painting with the caption, "Life is meant to be enjoyed." I let out a bitter laugh. Yes, Sophia enjoyed life while I broke my back paying for it. One Friday afternoon, as I was typing up a report, my coworker Hannah walked over holding 2 cappuccinos. She set one down on my desk, tilted her head, and studied me. "Olivia, you look exhausted. Have you ever thought about treating yourself?" I shrugged. "Treating myself means spending money. I can't afford that. But you work so hard. It's not like you should be eating instant noodles forever. How about dinner with us tonight? There's a new Italian place downtown. People say it's amazing." I shook my head. My mind was filled with nothing but bank account balances and texts from Mom. I have responsibilities. I can't just be impulsive. Hannah frowned, her voice softening. "Responsibilities that make you forget your own life. What's the point of that?" Her words hit me hard, but like always, I buried the feeling deep inside. That night, I went back to my apartment, reheated leftover noodles, and opened my phone. As usual, Sophia had updated her story. She and Danny trying an elaborate dessert at a famous bakery. On the table glittered glasses of wine, flickering candlelight, their carefree laughter spilling through the short clip. Meanwhile, I sat alone in my silent room listening to the ticking clock. A wave of loneliness and anger spread through my chest. The next day, I got a text from Mom. "Sophia wants to throw an anniversary party for us. 30 years of marriage isn't easy. If you're not too busy, please send a little extra to prepare. Love you so much." I froze. 30 years of marriage deserved respect, but why should it come from my wallet? I had just sent them a large amount last week. I hadn't even reloaded my phone plan yet. And still they wanted more. I didn't reply right away. I stared at the screen, replaying Hannah's words in my head. "Have you ever thought about treating yourself? Maybe it was time I did something for me." That thought lingered all day. By evening, I opened my laptop and searched for flights back to Georgia, where my parents lived. I decided I would show up at the anniversary party. I wanted to see their reactions with my own eyes, to find out if even a flicker of gratitude would appear when they realized how much I had sacrificed. As I typed in my credit card numbers to book the ticket, my hands trembled. I didn't know if I'd be welcomed or treated as an outsider. But at least this time, I wouldn't be watching their celebration from behind a phone screen. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. A feeling long dormant stirred awake inside me: anticipation. I was eager to see a different Olivia, not just the family ATM but a daughter worthy of recognition. What I didn't know was that booking that flight would open a door I never imagined, one leading to truths I had never dared to face, and the beginning of the biggest storm of my life. The taxi pulled up in front of my parents' 2-story house in the Atlanta suburbs. From a distance, I could already see the yard glowing with lights, fresh flowers lining the walkway, banquet tables set up in the garden. I drew in a deep breath, telling myself this was the moment I'd finally witness the appreciation I had waited 8 years for. But as soon as I stepped out of the cab, my eyes locked on something gleaming in the driveway. A brand new turquoise sports car with a huge white bow on the hood. The driver whistled. "Nice ride. Looks like someone just got a big gift." I froze. In my head, numbers flashed. At least $40,000. My hand tightened on the strap of my bag. The front door swung open and Mom Linda stepped out, startled to see me. "Olivia? You actually came home? I wanted to be here for this special day, Mom." I forced a smile. I thought the family would be happy. Her eyes flickered with unease, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, of course, welcome home, sweetheart." Then Sophia came bursting out, throwing her arms around me, her voice bubbling with excitement. "You're just in time. You have to see my graduation gift." She tugged me toward the sports car. "Danny and Mom and Dad bought it for me. Isn't it gorgeous? I deserve it. I graduated with honors in art." I laid my hand on the glossy paint, my throat tightening. In my head, one question echoed. Where did the money come from to buy this? My dad, Richard, appeared with a glass of wine in his hand, clapping me on the shoulder with a big laugh. "Sweetheart, what a surprise to see you. Thanks to you, our family can have all this today." I turned to him. "What do you mean?" "This house was paid off 3 years ago," he said proudly. "Because of the money you sent every month, we don't have to worry about the bank anymore." The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. 3 years. And yet every month you and Mom said the mortgage was overdue? Dad waved a hand. "Well, there are other expenses, you know. Sophia's tuition, fixing up the house, throwing parties. It's all for the family." Mom chimed in, her tone gentle but layered with meaning. You're the one with a steady, reliable job. We've always been so proud to have a daughter like you. I forced a smile, trying to mask the trembling inside. While I struggled to stretch every dollar, they used my money to build this lavish life. Inside, the house buzzed with laughter. Servers passed trays of expensive food, fresh flowers filled the living room, and Sophia posed in front of the mirror, showing off a sparkling necklace I'd never seen before. I found a seat in the hallway, trying to catch my breath. But from the kitchen window, hushed voices drifted out. Mom whispered, I still can't believe she just showed up for the party. Dad replied firmly, don't worry, she won't do anything. Tomorrow she'll be gone like always. Sophia's laugh rang out. Did you see her face when she looked at my car? Hilarious. Finally, she's useful. All three of them laughed, their voices blending with the music. I froze in place. Each word, each sound slammed into me like a hammer. Finally, she's useful. 8 years of sacrifice reduced to a mocking punchline. I slipped back outside and sat on the cold stone steps. Images flooded my mind. Sleepless nights working overtime, dinners of instant noodles on repeat, dreams pushed aside. Inside, they raised their glasses and laughed, celebrating with the sweat and tears I had poured out. A strange smile tugged at my lips. Pain was slowly giving way to something colder. No more tears, only resolve. That night, while laughter still rang inside, I whispered to myself, if they think I'm just a walking wallet, it's time to show them the real cost of underestimating me. I didn't know then that sitting on those steps was the moment a plan began to form. A plan that would change everything, one that would make sure they never dared to dismiss Olivia again. Later that night, when the party had ended and the guests were gone, the house grew quiet again. I pretended to be tired, excused myself to bed, and went upstairs to my old room. But instead of lying down, I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. Their words from the kitchen echoed, finally, she's useful. I couldn't let this go. I needed the truth. Near midnight, I crept downstairs. The door to Dad's study was half open. A faint glow spilled from the desktop computer on the dark wooden desk. Luckily, I knew his habit. He hadn't changed his password in years. As I typed Sophia 1999, the screen unlocked instantly. Holding my breath, I sat down. Before me was a maze of digital folders, bank, bills, expenses. I opened each one and my heart sank. In the bank statements, my name appeared month after month. Transfers from my account to theirs, $800, $1,500, sometimes $2,000. Year after year without fail. The total, $128,000. I rubbed my eyes, checked again, but the number stayed the same. $128,000, almost everything I could have used for a decent apartment, a savings account, or a fresh start. I scrolled down. And then a massive transaction appeared. $48,000, transferred 3 years ago with the note mortgage paid in full. I froze. So Dad hadn't been lying. The house had been paid off long ago. But why, for 3 years, had they still texted me in desperation, still claimed the bank was threatening foreclosure, still kept me on edge every single month? The answer revealed itself when I opened the credit card expenses folder. A long list stretched across the screen. Luxury clothing stores, art galleries, vacations in Florida and Colorado. There was even a $42,500 payment to an auto dealer. Clearly the sports car parked in the driveway. I sat in shock, my hands cold. While I ate cheap instant noodles, they used my money for first-class flights, jewelry, and a graduation gift for Sophia that I had never even dared to dream of. I took screenshots of everything, every bank statement, every expense, every transaction. Then I opened my personal email and sent the entire file to myself, leaving no trace behind. Before shutting down the computer, I checked the archive of old messages saved in their inbox. The same words I had received on my phone stared back at me. The furnace broke, we need $5,000 immediately. Property taxes went up, Olivia, only you can help us through this. Sophia's upset she can't afford her exhibition fees, can you help her? Each line cut like a knife. I remembered the time I pulled money from my retirement fund, the time I skipped a Colorado trip with colleagues because I had to send away all my savings. All of it just to feed these lies. I printed the most important documents, slipping them into a thick envelope. The hum of the printer in the quiet room sounded like a verdict being read. When everything was done, I carefully erased the browsing history and powered down the computer. Before leaving the study, I glanced at the framed family photo on the wall. Me, Sophia, and my parents all smiling brightly. But now, those smiles looked like the most artificial thing in the world. Back in my room, I shut the door and sat on the bed with the heavy envelope in my hands. No more tears fell. Instead, an emptiness filled me, alongside something else. Clarity. I whispered to myself, Olivia, they didn't just take your money. They took 8 years of your life. I knew from that moment on nothing would ever be the same. And I also knew the evidence in my hands would be the beginning of a plan. One that would finally make my family feel the loss they had forced me to carry for so many years. The next morning, before the sunlight had fully spilled through the curtains, I heard clattering in the kitchen. I walked downstairs, the envelope hidden inside my coat pocket. My mom, Linda, was arranging flowers in a large crystal vase. I stood at the doorway, drew in a deep breath, and spoke. We need to talk. She turned, surprised for a moment, then quickly put on her usual gentle smile. What is it, sweetheart? Did you sleep well? I walked straight to the kitchen table, laid the thick envelope down, and said in a calm, cold voice. For 8 years every month, you sent messages about overdue mortgages, higher taxes, emergencies. But the truth is, my money paid off the debt and the rest went to luxuries. Mom frowned, her tone sharper now. Olivia, you're exaggerating. Families have many expenses, not just the mortgage. Sophia needed help with school, your dad needed house repairs, the anniversary party needed funds. I gave a bitter laugh. If it was just many expenses, why invent stories about losing the house to force me to send money? Why lie over and over again? She hesitated, then sighed, softening her tone. We didn't lie. We just didn't tell you everything. Didn't tell me everything? I clenched my fists. I have the texts, Mom. The bank will take the house if you don't help. I remember that time. I pulled $5,000 from my retirement fund. Her eyes darted away, but her voice stayed stubborn. Olivia, it was all for the family. Your money wasn't wasted. It became this beautiful home, Sophia's education, the moments we could celebrate together. I looked around at the gleaming kitchen, the fresh flowers, the brand name appliances. All of it built with my sweat and sacrifice, while I scraped by day after day. You call that for the family? I asked, my voice trembling from holding back. In 8 years, have you ever once asked if I had enough to live on? Have you ever cared about my dreams? Or to you, am I just a walking wallet? Mom glared, then sighed, her voice softening in a false sweetness. Sweetheart, every family has someone who carries more. You have a steady job, you're capable. Sophia is sensitive, she's pursuing art, she needs support. You're stronger, so it makes sense for you to carry the load. Makes sense? I let out a bitter laugh. So my sacrifices are just expected while my sister gets to enjoy everything. Don't say it like that. Sophia deserves what she has. She studies hard, she needs the right environment to grow. I cut her off, my voice sharper than ever. And I don't deserve it? I work myself to the bone, gave up my youth, turned down every opportunity just to provide for this family. Do you know how I live? A rundown apartment, a beat-up car about to die, dinners of instant noodles. Meanwhile, she has a $42,000 sports car, vacations, and a closet full of designer clothes. Mom's face flushed red, but instead of remorse, she clenched her fists. You're still fine. You have a job, an income, you can take care of yourself. So sacrificing a little so the family can live comfortably, what's wrong with that? Something inside me snapped. The hope for an apology, a shred of regret, evaporated. All I saw now was brazenness. They never thought exploiting me was wrong. To Mom, it was simply natural, because Olivia is capable, so she carries the weight. I shot to my feet, my voice like ice. I am not this family's money machine. I am a person, and I am sick of being treated like I don't matter. Mom frowned, still trying to keep her tone gentle. Olivia, don't be dramatic. Remember, we're family. Family shares everything. I looked her straight in the eyes and whispered, family doesn't lie to each other. With that, I turned and walked out, leaving her frozen by the vase of flowers. I knew there was no turning back after this confrontation. And in that moment, a cold thought lit up inside me. If they saw exploiting me as normal, then it was time I showed them the consequences of making me their family ATM. I left the kitchen with a heart heavy as stone. Anger and disappointment blended into a chill I had never felt before. I knew that if I kept clinging to Mom's words about sharing as a family, I would be crushed completely. That evening, I met Annalise, my best friend from college, at a small cafe downtown. She was the only person I trusted enough to open up to. After I poured out everything, Annalise sat silently for a long while, tapping her fingers on the table. Olivia, do you remember 5 years ago? When your dad had that minor heart attack? I frowned, nodding. It had been terrifying. Dad asked me to sign a stack of legal papers, just in case. Back then I was naive, thinking it was only for peace of mind. Annalise lowered her voice. One of those was a general power of attorney. You have the right to manage your parents' assets and finances. I went still as the memory crashed over me. I remembered my shaky signature on that paper, remembered Dad's reassurance. Just sign, it's only for peace of mind. We'll never need it. I looked at Annalise, suspicious. I could actually use that now? She nodded, her eyes sharp. Yes. And you could completely turn the tables. I didn't sleep all night. The questions spun endlessly in my head. Would it be right to use it? But then the bank statements, the fake texts, the mocking laughter. Finally, she's useful. All came back to me. They had never once thought about my feelings. The next morning, I called Hayden, my ex-boyfriend now working in finance in Houston. We'd been apart for 2 years, but we'd stayed in touch. He picked up, his deep voice surprised. Olivia? Haven't heard from you in a while. What's going on? I swallowed hard and summarized everything, from 8 years of transfers, to discovering the power of attorney. Silence hung for a moment, then Hayden spoke slowly. I'm sorry to hear this. But if you truly want to reclaim what you've lost, that document is the key. Explain, I pressed, gripping the phone tightly. With that paper, you can refinance the house in your parents' name. If it's worth around $300,000 to $350,000, you could borrow up to about 80% of its value, roughly $280,000. I held my breath. That number was far beyond anything I had ever imagined. Hayden continued, but you need to think carefully. That loan would saddle them with a monthly payment. Around $900 to $1,000 every month. Are you ready to push your family into that? I closed my eyes. Images of me crammed into a tiny apartment while Sophia drove a sports car and sipped wine flashed vividly. My mother's words, "You're capable, so you carry it," echoed again. I opened my eyes, my voice firm. They made their choice. Now it's my turn. Hayden sighed. If you're set on this, I'll connect you with a solid broker who handles quick deals like this. But Olivia, you have to understand. Once it starts, there's no turning back. I gave a faint, icy smile. Even to myself it felt unfamiliar. I know. And I don't want to turn back. We agreed to meet the broker the following week. I hung up, my heart still pounding but my chest lighter. For the first time in years I felt in control. That afternoon I wandered the neighborhood. Shop windows glowed, small families ate dinner inside. I wondered, somewhere out there, did parents ever see their daughter only as a wallet the way mine had? Back at my rental, I sat at the table and opened the envelope of evidence. I stacked the bank statements neatly, then placed the power of attorney document on top. Papers that once felt like a formality now looked like a weapon. I whispered to myself, like swearing an oath. Olivia isn't the girl to be exploited anymore. From now on, they'll pay for every dollar they forced me to sacrifice. Outside, the city lights flickered on. In the golden glow spilling across the street, I knew a new chapter had begun. A chapter where, for the first time, I held the scales. And they would never see me coming. 3 days later, I met the broker Hayden recommended. His name was Marcus, a wiry man in his 40s who moved fast, speaking as if always racing against the clock. Your power of attorney is still valid. Marcus skimmed the file I handed over, nodding. And your parents' house is currently appraised at around $320,000. That means we can refinance for about $150,000 at a fixed 30-year rate. He scribbled quick calculations, talking like he was pitching a deal. Monthly payments will be around $900. With their current income, they'll struggle. But legally, everything checks out. I nodded, a mix of nerves and cold determination in my chest. I want to proceed right away. Marcus smiled. I like working with decisive people. Fast paperwork, we can close in 3 days. Through the signing, my hands trembled slightly, but my eyes never left the lines. Olivia Harvey, attorney in fact. When the red seal stamped the final page, it echoed like a bell tolling fate. Congratulations, Marcus said. In just a few days, the funds will be wired to the account you specify. I had already opened a new account at a different bank, the password so long I had to write it down. When the notification flashed, balance, $150,000, I sat still for several minutes. 8 years drained from me, and now that number was finally in my hands. That night, I poured myself a cheap glass of wine, but for the first time it tasted sweet. I opened my laptop, drafted an email to the whole family. From today forward, I will not be involved in any of the family's financial matters. I believe everyone is grown enough to handle their own lives. I am no longer an emergency lifeline. Please do not text or call me for money again. Olivia. I hit send and sat in the small apartment listening to the old air conditioner hum. Inside me there was a strange emptiness, but mixed with release. 15 minutes later my phone lit up nonstop. First Mom, Olivia, what are you talking about? What happened? Then Dad, his voice stern, you're bringing shame on this family. Fix this mistake immediately. Finally, Sophia, are you crazy? Mom and Dad are freaking out. You can't just abandon them like this. I didn't answer. Every call went straight to voicemail. When the ringing grew so constant it felt like the whole room was shaking, I opened my settings and blocked each number. Within minutes, silence. The next day I went to work like nothing had changed. But I knew my parents' world was collapsing. Month after month, they'd relied on Olivia, the ATM. Now instead they had a brand new mortgage staring back at them. At lunch, I sat alone in a small diner near the office, watching other families laugh and chat around their tables. I thought back to all of Mom's dramatic texts. If you don't help, we'll lose the house. And now for the first time that risk was real. Not because I lacked love, but because they had put themselves there. That evening when I got home I checked my phone. The voicemail box was full. One message from Dad, his voice shaking. Olivia, you need to call me back right now. The bank sent papers saying we have a new debt. Explain this. This has to be some mistake. Next came my mother's voice, choked with tears. Honey, if this is your way of getting revenge, I beg you to reconsider. We're still family. And finally, Sophia, furious, almost screaming. You've destroyed everything. Mom cries all day, Dad is angry, and it's all because of you. Aren't you ashamed? I listened to them all, then deleted each message. Inside me there was no storm anymore. I saw clearly. This was only the beginning. In the mirror, my reflection no longer showed a submissive daughter, but a woman who knew exactly what she needed to do. I whispered to myself, Olivia isn't being exploited anymore. And this time everything will change for good. Just 1 week after I sent the email cutting off all financial obligations, my family was already in chaos. By Monday morning my inbox overflowed with messages. Dad wrote, someone is impersonating you, taking out a mortgage with our documents. This has to be fraud. You need to call the bank right now and cancel it before it's too late. Right below was Mom's email. Olivia, if you think this is a joke, it's gone too far. You've put us in serious trouble. If you don't fix this, we will go to the police. I read it and smirked. Instead of admitting fault, they chose denial, spinning a story about being scammed. That afternoon, Sophia posted a long status on Facebook. My family is going through a difficult time. Sometimes those closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. It's heartbreaking when someone deliberately destroys our lives. Thank you to those who stand by me. Your love and kindness keep me strong. Attached was a photo of her hugging Mom, both of them with red, swollen eyes. Comments poured in with sympathy. So sorry, stay strong. Family is everything, I hope it works out. Who could be so cruel to their own family? I read each line, torn between laughter and rising tension. Sophia had successfully painted herself as the perfect victim online. 2 days later, Danny, Sophia's boyfriend, was suddenly waiting outside my office. As soon as I stepped out, he approached, his voice tight with anger. Olivia, we need to talk. I glanced around, noticing a few co-workers watching curiously. I sighed and led him to a nearby cafe. Hey, Danny. I leaned on the table. He leaned forward, his voice sharp. You're destroying your family. Do you know your mom cries all night, your dad can't sleep, and Sophia is under so much pressure? They don't deserve this. I raised an eyebrow. They don't deserve it? But I did. For 8 years I carried this family, while they faked hardship to burn my money on luxury cars and parties. Danny, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just taking back what's mine and forcing them to be accountable. He gave a bitter laugh. That sounds so cold. Do you even have any family love left? I looked him straight in the eyes. Love doesn't mean being exploited. If you had lived like me, eating instant noodles while your money turned into necklaces and vacations for others, you'd understand what cold feels like. Danny had no comeback. He shook his head and walked out, leaving me sitting there but without a shred of guilt. That night, I received an official email from Dad. Olivia, your actions are an abuse of the power of attorney. You've violated the family's trust. If you don't cancel the mortgage and return the money immediately, we will sue you for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. This is your last chance to make it right. I printed the email and forwarded it to Hayden with a short note. Can they actually do anything legally? Less than an hour later, he called back, his voice steady. They're just bluffing. The general power of attorney you signed with your dad gives you full authority to act for them in all financial matters. You haven't broken any law. They can revoke it from here on out, but they can't undo what's already been completed. So they can't sue me? I asked. They can try, but it won't go anywhere. At most, they're trying to pressure you psychologically. Don't be afraid. You acted fully within your legal rights. I exhaled, tension draining from my chest. In my mind, the images of Mom's threats, Dad's rage, and Sophia's online sobbing now looked like nothing more than a clumsy play. Thank you, Hayden, I whispered. I was worried they could actually turn me into a criminal. Olivia. His voice softened. Don't forget you did nothing wrong. They're the ones who turned you into a bank for 8 years. After hanging up, I sat alone in my tiny apartment, the desk lamp casting my shadow long across the floor. Out there, my family was probably drowning in panic, scrambling for a way out. They screamed, cursed, blamed. But I knew this time the control was in my hands. I took a sip of water, opened my notebook, and wrote one short line. The day they realize Olivia is no longer the family aim, and I will never go back. Inside me wasn't burning hatred, but a strange calm. The calm of someone who had finally touched her own justice. The phone buzzed nonstop through Saturday morning. I stared at the flashing name Mom without moving, but curiosity finally made me pick up. Olivia. My mother, Linda, choked so hard she could barely speak. Honey, please listen to me. I stayed silent, waiting. The bank sent the notice, she sobbed. This month we owe $900 on the mortgage. Your father doesn't have a new contract and I don't have a job. If this goes on, we'll lose the house. A long pause hung in the air. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. That phrase, we'll lose the house, they'd used it for 8 years to squeeze me. But this time it was their reality, not my burden anymore. Olivia, I'm begging you. Her voice shook. I'll sell Sophia's car. I promise to cut expenses, rearrange everything. You just have to help us this one last time. I heard her sniffles, the shuffle of papers in the background. My heart skipped a beat, but reason pulled me steady. Mom, I said slowly, I gave 8 years. I've already lost too much. This time I'm not saving you. Olivia, how can you be so cruel? She cried out. We're family. Family takes care of each other. Family doesn't lie to each other, Mom. I cut in, my voice turning cold. Family doesn't invent fake stories just to bleed money from a daughter. Silence. I heard her broken breathing, but no more words came. Finally, I pressed end. That night, my inbox pinged. Sender, Sophia. Sis, I'm sorry. I know we were wrong. I know we used you. But I swear I never wanted it to go this far. I was selfish, blind, and I truly regret it. Please give me a chance to make it right. I stared at the words for a long while. On the screen was an apology, but in my head, I saw Sophia smirking that night, flaunting her new car and saying, finally, you're useful. I typed a few words. You're sorry you got caught, not for what you did. Then I deleted it, unsent. I knew her apology changed nothing. Instead, I opened my email settings and blocked Sophia's address. One click and the noise from my family slipped into silence. I shut the laptop, leaned back in my chair. In my small apartment, there was only the tick of the clock and the warm glow of the lamp. No more tearful calls, no more desperate texts. Just me and the fragile peace I had reclaimed after so many years. I knew in that moment a line had been drawn. On one side, the old family with lies, selfishness, and endless demands. On the other side, me, Olivia, who had finally learned to put herself first. And I whispered to seal it once more. From now on, I'll never cross that line again. News that the house in suburban Atlanta was up for sale spread faster than I expected. A childhood friend from town called, her voice full of surprise. "Olivia, are your parents really selling the house? There's a big for sale sign right on the lawn." I just murmured a thank you for letting me know. Inside me wasn't joy or sorrow, only indifference. The house where I grew up was now just a shell stuffed with false memories. Within weeks, I heard the house sold quickly, prime location listed below market. Almost all the money went to pay off the new mortgage. My parents were forced to move into a small apartment in a shabby complex, paint peeling, the balcony too narrow to hold even a single chair. Sophia was different. She refused to cram into that tiny place with our parents and instead moved in with Danny. The images she once flaunted online, wine glasses, gowns, a sparkling sports car, suddenly vanished. The new photos showed only a few dim shots of Danny's living room, plain and dull. The turquoise convertible was gone too. I guessed it had been sold off in a hurry to salvage what little money was left. Someone in town said they saw Sophia sitting in a cheap coffee shop, no longer looking like the glamorous girl she used to be. I just nodded. It all came as fast as the wind and left just as quickly. But my family wasn't finished. One afternoon, I got an envelope from the post office, stamped from a local law firm. Inside was a complaint. My parents and Sophia filing together to sue me for emotional damage, abuse of fiduciary duty, and causing the family's financial collapse. I laughed and shook my head. After everything, they still saw me as the villain. I forwarded the documents straight to my lawyer, the one I'd hired with the very money I had taken back. He skimmed it and smiled. "You don't have to worry. This is nothing but a desperate attempt. The power of attorney was legal and valid when you signed the mortgage paperwork. The bank approved everything. They can't prove abuse because you only acted within the authority you were given. But they're saying I caused emotional damage." I frowned. He shrugged. "Too vague. The court will throw it out. What they really want is to scare you, to push you into negotiating or paying back the money. Stay calm, we'll handle it." Hearing that lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. I wasn't the cornered daughter anymore. I had the law on my side, evidence in hand, and years of sacrifice to prove the truth. In the days that followed, my family kept sending emails, sometimes pleading, sometimes threatening. At times they were soft. "Olivia, we can settle. Just return part of the money and everything will be fine." Other times they turned harsh. "If you don't compromise, the whole family will know you're ungrateful." I read them, then forwarded them straight to my lawyer. I no longer let emotions dictate my choices. One late night, I sat on the balcony of my small apartment, looking at the city lights stretching out. I thought about myself just months ago, panicking whenever Mom texted, urgent, trembling every time I opened my banking app. Now I could sit quietly, sip hot tea, and know they had to handle their own lives. Rumors spread back home. My family had sold the prettiest house on the street and moved into a tiny apartment. People whispered. Some pitied them, others were curious. I didn't take part in any of it. To me, it was simply the natural consequence. Sophia tried again, sending me a long personal email, saying she truly regretted everything, that it had gone too far, that she just wanted us to be sisters again. I read it all, then hit block. Because I knew if I gave them another chance, we'd fall back into the same cycle. When my lawyer called to tell me the lawsuit had officially been dismissed, I just smiled faintly. The weight of the world that had once crushed me was gone. I hadn't only won legally, I had won against myself, against the fear that held me hostage for 8 years. And I understood. To them, I might now be the traitor to the family. But to me, this was the first time I was truly free. The day the moving truck pulled up to my new building, I stood staring at the sign, the Magnolia Residences. My heart beat faster than it had in years. After so long in that cramped, shabby apartment, I was finally stepping into a place I could truly call home. The 2-bedroom unit on the 14th floor opened up to light wood floors, wide glass windows overlooking the bustling city. A modern kitchen with a granite island, plenty of room to cook without squeezing into corners. The living room bathed in warm golden afternoon sunlight. I placed my hand on the smooth countertop and tears spilled down my face, but this time not from bitterness. They were tears of release, of someone who had finally risen after years of being crushed. That afternoon I went shopping with Annalise. No more counting every dollar. I picked out a new forest green sofa, an oak bookshelf, a few potted plants to bring life into the apartment. I even bought a wide bed with crisp white sheets, something I once thought was an unnecessary luxury. Annalise looked around the filling apartment, smiling wide. "Olivia, I've never seen you this happy." I answered, my voice trembling with emotion. "This is the first time I've truly built a life for myself. Not for my parents, not for Sophia. Just for me." That evening, I cooked a simple but hearty dinner: pasta with creamy mushroom sauce, fresh salad, and a glass of wine. Sitting in the bright kitchen, I felt like I had stepped out of a long, exhausting dream into a reality I chose for myself. As I unpacked a few more boxes, my phone buzzed. A new message, unknown number, but I knew instantly. It was Mom. "Olivia, no matter what happened, we've always loved you. I hope one day you can forgive us. You'll always be our daughter." I sat still for a few seconds, heart aching. Then I typed back, "I'm home already, Mom." One short line, but it carried everything. Because for me, home was no longer the suburban house that had been sold, nor the place filled with lies. Home was now this space I had built for myself, where I could finally live as who I truly was. I set the phone down and stepped out onto the balcony. The city glowed bright in the night. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze brush my hair. In that moment, I knew the past might have left scars, but the future was wide open. That night, I stretched out on my new bed. The sheets were cool, the scent of lavender oil filled the room. For the first time in years, I drifted into sleep without dreaming of desperate texts, without seeing my bank account drained. Instead, I dreamed of a different Olivia, free, strong, and smiling as she walked her own path. When dawn poured through the glass windows, I opened my eyes and whispered, "This is the real beginning." In the days after settling into my new apartment, I built a morning ritual: brewing a hot cup of coffee, throwing the windows wide open, and letting the first light of day spill in. Sometimes I'd sit for hours just soaking in the peace I had longed for through 8 long years. In that stillness, I realized something. Personal boundaries aren't selfish, they're the foundation of maturity. I once believed that family love meant I had to carry everything, no matter how heavy. But the truth was the opposite. Real love doesn't demand someone sacrifice themselves until they disappear. I remembered the times Mom texted for help, the midnight calls from Dad, the pleading eyes mixed with pressure. They had turned help into obligation, into invisible chains that forced me to keep handing over money. Each time I said yes, they only learned new ways to push me further back, treating me not as a person with feelings and dreams, but as a mobile bank. The manipulation lasted so long I forgot I even had the right to choose. I thought in terms of "I must" instead of "I can." I treated responsibility as the single rope tethering me to the family. But when I finally looked at the bank statements and faced the raw truth, I saw it clearly. They never needed me to survive. They only needed my money to indulge themselves. And so I made a choice. I reclaimed fairness not with shouting or blind revenge, but with law and finance. The power of attorney I once signed out of fear for my father's health had become the very tool that shifted the balance. I hadn't broken any law. I had only used the very system they placed in my hands to take back what was mine. Some might call that cruel. But I knew sometimes firmness is the only way out of exploitation. I was no longer the Olivia of 8 years ago, the girl eating instant noodles, wearing old clothes, living in a rundown apartment just to fuel someone else's dreams. I was the Olivia of today who knew how to prioritize herself, who could say no and accept the cost of change. I also understood this: help that doesn't come from free will eventually turn into a burden. And once that burden outweighs what you can bear, it crushes all love beneath it. I had reached that breaking point and I chose to let go. Now, every evening when I step into my lit apartment, I feel the simple joy of knowing this is a space built by my own hands. No fake debts, no urgent texts. Just me, and the life that truly belongs to me. Mom once texted, "We've always loved you and we hope you can forgive us." I don't deny the bond of mother and child, but I know that love was twisted by dependency and manipulation. And when I replied, "I'm home already," it wasn't just the end of an old relationship. It was my declaration that I had found my true family within myself. My family once thought I'd never dare cut ties, that I would always stay weak. But in truth, I had crossed the line, and I would never return to being the ATM. On the last night of the year, I sat by the window watching fireworks burst across the sky. I sipped my wine and smiled. 8 years of being exploited were over. I was no longer the one carrying false debts and lies. I was Olivia, free, strong, and finally living the life I deserved. And in that deep sleep, I no longer dreamed of silent money transfers. I dreamed of the future, where I lived fully without chains beneath an open sky. Olivia's story reminds us that in real life, love and responsibility in a family must come with respect and honesty. Helping doesn't mean sacrificing without limits, and it should never become a permanent obligation just because someone is more capable. When personal boundaries are erased, love turns into burden and manipulation. The lesson is, learn to say no at the right time, protect your own rights, because only when we live for ourselves can we truly love in a healthy and lasting way. What do you think of Olivia's choice and the way she reclaimed justice for herself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss the next moving and surprising family stories.